Korea's exports continue to boom in May, driven by surging semiconductor demand and strong shipments to China and the United States. Foreign Minister Cho Hyun hosted Korea's first ever foreign ministers meeting with African countries in Seoul on Monday, as they move to deepen cooperation on supply chains, critical minerals, and global economic security. In the Middle East, the United States and Iran exchanged fresh strikes heading into Monday, raising new doubts over already fragile negotiations aimed at ending the widening regional conflict. We begin with the trade front. Exports hit an all-time high for the month of May, supported by semiconductors, which in turn has pushed the nation's cumulative trade surplus so far this year well beyond the $100 billion mark. Our economics correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
Korea's export sector continues its strong upward trajectory, fueled by surging global demand for memory chips. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Resources reported on Monday that outbound shipments in May reached $87.7 billion. That's a massive 53.2% surge from a year earlier. It is an all-time high for the month of May and the first time exports have exceeded the $80 billion mark for 3 consecutive months. Imports also climbed 20.8% year-on-year to $60.8 billion. But despite the higher imports, the solid export performance resulted in a monthly trade surplus of $26.9 billion. As in previous months, it was chip exports that drove the surge, up 169.4% compared to the same period last year to reach $37.2 billion. And this marks a record high for semiconductor exports, staying above the $30 billion mark for 3 back-to-back months. The ministry attributed this sustained momentum directly to the rising value of these tech components.
Semiconductor exports increased even more this month compared to last month. This is because the unit price of memory semiconductors, which we continue to focus on, has risen even higher than in April.
Shipments to major trading partners saw large gains. Exports to China surged 81%, while exports to the United States increased 59%. Looking ahead, government officials remain highly optimistic about the remainder of the year.
If we look at it optimistically, achieving the $1 trillion mark is not an entirely impossible figure.
Other sectors contributing to the upward trend include petroleum products, which jumped 46.2%, and cosmetics, which grew 24.2%. Automobile exports, however, fell by 6% due to fewer working days, supplier disruptions, and ongoing geopolitical uncertainties in the Middle East. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Korea's benchmark KOSPI surged to a fresh record on Monday, surpassing 8,800, coming within striking distance of the 9,000 mark for the first time. Cho Young-in files this report.
South Korea's benchmark KOSPI opened at a record high of 8,485 on Monday and continued extending gains throughout the session. According to the KRX, the surge triggered a buy-side sidecar at around 11:30 a.m., which temporarily halted program buying for 5 minutes. After breaking through the 8,500 mark for the first time, the index successfully crossed 8,600, 8,700, and even 8,800 during intraday trading. The KOSPI climbed as high as 8,874.16 at one point. The benchmark index closed up 312.23 points, or 3.68%, at 8,788.38. For the first time, total market capitalization also surpassed 7,000 trillion won, or around $4.6 trillion. Powered by the rally, Samsung Electronics, the benchmark index's largest component, jumped 10.9% to close at 349,000 won, marking its first ever finish above the 340,000 won level. Samsung's market capitalization also surpassed 2 quadrillion won, or about $1.32 trillion according to the Korea Exchange. At that level, the company's market capitalization stood at 2,025.7 trillion won, marking the first time a single Korean company has exceeded the 2 quadrillion won threshold. Meanwhile, SK Hynix, which traded lower earlier in the session, also reversed course and ended higher at 2.363 million won. The company's market capitalization, which has recently narrowed the gap with Samsung, stood at 1,689.8 trillion won, equivalent to roughly 83% of Samsung's valuation. The rally in semiconductor shares appeared to gain further momentum after data showed South Korea's semiconductor exports reached a record $37.2 billion last month. Jung-un, Arirang News.
Korea is stepping up its engagement with Africa as Seoul hosts representatives from 50 African countries for a landmark three-day meeting aimed at deepening ties across trade, investment and security. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Si-young files this report.
Korean and African countries are seeking a stronger partnership for solidarity, sustainability and shared prosperity. Korea launched its first ever Korea-Africa Foreign Ministers meeting in central Seoul on Monday, as it looks to deepen ties with the continent amid growing competition over supply chains, critical minerals and emerging markets. Minister Cho-yeon formally opened the three-day meeting that brings together representatives from 50 African countries and 4 regional organizations, including the African Union.
We gather today at a critical juncture where the global order is rapidly shifting. The world is facing multifaceted challenges across various sectors, such as supply chains, energy and food security, and so on. These challenges are increasing uncertainty in the global economy.
Co-chair of the meeting, Ghana's Foreign Minister Samuel Okuzeto Ablaka highlighted the growing strength and strategic importance of Korea-Africa relations.
Strong partnerships grounded in trust, mutual respect and shared interests will remain essential in navigating an increasingly interconnected and rapidly changing global environment.
Talks focused on strengthening economic cooperation and promoting shared prosperity through greater collaboration in areas like trade, investment, infrastructure, technology, education, food security and supply chains. Ministers also touched on joint responses to global challenges, including development cooperation, climate change, health, peace and security, and people-to-people exchanges. On the sidelines, Minister Cho is set to hold bilateral talks with all foreign ministers attending on support for Korean companies operating in Africa, responses to supply chain disruptions, and the protection of Korean nationals overseas. On Tuesday, a business forum will gather 300 corporate leaders and experts, along with government officials. In the afternoon, President Lee Jae Myung will receive around 20 ministers and senior officials from African countries at the Blue House. He is expected to exchange views with the participants on ways to further expand cooperation between Korea and Africa. An inaugural Korea-Africa Leaders Summit was held in Korea 2 years ago, setting out plans for the minister-level session to follow up this year.
Seoul says the meeting marks a broader effort to diversify its diplomacy and expand its role as a globally responsible middle power, while building deeper, mutually beneficial partnerships with African countries. Oh Si-young, Arirang News.
This week, President Lee Jae Myung celebrates the first anniversary of his inauguration. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min takes a look at the past year with a focus on his diplomatic and economic policies.
On June 4, 2025, Lee Jae Myung was sworn in as the country's 21st president, vowing to end polarization triggered by martial law.
희망의 새 나라를 위한 우리 국민의 준엄한 명령을 반드시 받들겠습니다.
6 months later, he relocated the nation's top office back to the Blue House, or Cheongwa-dae, the traditional presidential compound, officially ending the Yongsan era, during which martial law was declared in 2024. On the diplomatic front, President Lee reached a trade deal with his U.S. counterpart, Donald Trump, after 2 summits, promising large-scale investments in the U.S. for lower tariffs. Also agreed with cooperation on South Korea building a nuclear power submarine.
한미 동맹은 안보와 경제, 첨단 기술을 포괄하는 진정한 미래형 전략적 포괄 동맹으로 발전 심화하게 되었습니다.
President Lee has brought a kind of maturity and sort of balance to South Korean foreign policies. That's probably the best one, is sort of keeping things on the rails, given that the U.S. has turned out to be a pretty difficult partner under this president.
On top of that, the South Korean leader placed pragmatic diplomacy at the forefront, having restored Seoul-Beijing ties and resumed the so-called Seoul-Tokyo shuttle diplomacy. Another focus was expanding diplomatic horizons to the global south amid global uncertainties. On the economy, South Korean stocks have seen an unprecedented rally, driven by a global AI boom and efforts to improve shareholder returns, with the benchmark KOSPI exceeding far beyond the 5,000 threshold, one of its campaign pledges. In 2025, Korea secured 260,000 GPUs from NVIDIA and launched the Presidential Council on National AI Strategy.
저는 우리가 하기에 따라서 이 코리아 디스카운트가 아니고 얼마든지 정상평가를 넘어서서 코리아 프리미엄도 가능하다.
Reviving the people's livelihoods was also a key pillar, with the administration organizing extra budgets to breathe life into the economy in the form of consumption vouchers, as well as minimizing the fallout from the Middle East conflict as the country navigates high interest rates, high inflation, and a weaker currency. When it comes to stabilizing housing prices in the capital, Seoul, the president has reinstated the heavy capital gains tax on multiple home owners and sent out a series of strong messages to curb housing speculation. 1 year ago, President Lee took an oath of office, placing pragmatism front and center. For his second year in office, he puts greater emphasis on yielding tangible outcomes. He will unveil key policy visions next week for the year ahead. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae Myung has ordered an all-out response following an explosion that killed 5 people at a Hanwha Aerospace facility in Daejeon City. According to the Blue House on Monday, he instructed authorities to mobilize all available resources for rescue operations and recovery efforts. After an explosion at around 10:59 a.m. on Monday at Hanwha Aerospace's Daejeon plant, 5 people were killed, 1 suffered severe burns across the body, and another sustained minor injuries. The fire was brought under control within 50 minutes and was fully extinguished shortly after 1 p.m. President Lee called for a thorough investigation into the cause of the blast and for measures to prevent similar cases. Prime Minister Kim Min-seok also ordered relevant agencies to use all available manpower and equipment for firefighting, rescue operations, and medical support. Over in the Middle East, the U.S. has carried out what it described as self-defense strikes on Iranian military sites. Iran says it has retaliated by targeting a U.S. military base in the Middle East, believed to have been used for the attack. Our Kim So-young has the latest.
The United States has launched another round of strikes targeting Iranian military facilities as negotiations to end the war with Iran remain deadlocked. In a post on X on Monday, U.S. Central Command said it had carried out self-defense strikes over the weekend on Iranian radar and drone command and control site in Gorak and on Kashim Island. It said the strikes were a measured and deliberate response to aggressive Iranian actions. CENTCOM said U.S. fighter aircraft swiftly eliminated Iranian air defenses, a ground control station, and 2 one-way attack drones that it said posed a clear threat to ships near the Strait of Hormuz. It added that no American service members were harmed and said it would continue to protect U.S. assets and interests in response to what it called unwarranted Iranian aggression during the ongoing ceasefire. Iran's semi-official Tasnim news agency reported on Friday that Iranian forces had shot down a U.S. drone near Iran's southern coast. CENTCOM, however, denied the claim, saying that no U.S. aircraft had been shot down and that all American air assets had been accounted for. Iran responded to the latest U.S. strikes by immediately declaring retaliation. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said on Iranian state television that, in response to a recent U.S. military attack on telecommunications tower on Sirik Island in Hormuzgan province, it specifically targeted the airbase from which American forces allegedly launched the attack. The target is believed to have been a U.S. airbase in Kuwait. Kuwait's military said it was confronting hostile missile and drone attacks, with reports suggesting they were likely carried out by Iranian forces or an Iranian-backed militia in Iraq. The latest exchange comes as talks remain stalled after President Trump reportedly sent back changes to Iran's proposed deal. Reports suggest Washington is seeking tougher terms on Iran's nuclear restrictions and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, while remaining cautious about sanctions relief. Tehran has pushed back, saying no deal will be approved unless Iran's sovereign rights are fully protected. Kim So-young, Arirang News.
Amid speculation that Chinese President Xi Jinping may visit North Korea, a large structure believed to be a review stand is being installed in Pyongyang's Kim Il-sung Square. According to the NK News on Monday, footage taken by Singaporean Foreign Minister during his recent visit to the regime showed a large screened-off structure and a mobile crane positioned in front of the square. NK News said the site is the same spot where a temporary stone review stand was installed for Russian President Vladimir Putin's visit to Pyongyang in 2024, hinting at Xi's possible visit to the regime as early as this month. Satellite imagery also showed space being cleared to accommodate multiple large aircraft around Pyongyang's Sunan International Airport. Across the border this past weekend, North Korea's Kim Jong-un was at a massive greenhouse compound for the third time this year to commend the efforts thus far and to call for technological advancements beyond those for simple production. Ian Jin files this report.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited a large-scale greenhouse complex in the northwestern city of Sinuiju on Sunday, accompanied by his wife Lee Seol-ju, daughter Ju-ae, sister Kim Yo-jong, and other ranking officials. It was his third visit to the complex this year and his eighth visit since 2024 when it was built following devastating floods to showcase the regime's focus on improving people's livelihoods. The North Korean Central News Agency reported on Monday that Kim visited the complex for an on-site review of vegetable production and management operations. It also said that Kim expressed satisfaction with reports that hundreds of tons of vegetables were being harvested daily. For improvements, he stressed the need to be able to grow vegetables year-round while reducing energy consumption and production costs, calling it an urgent matter. In addition to greater crop diversification, Kim also addressed methodological issues, saying the focus needs to go beyond productivity. He called for the application of scientific and technological principles to fertilizer and cultivation management, including greater mechanization of production and logistics, as well as a faster adoption of advanced technologies. He also stressed the need to ensure the supply of highly nutritious and flavorful vegetables for the people. Kim also toured the ongoing construction sites of a new health center facility and a vegetable processing plant, both of which are reportedly at about 50% completion. He commented that the new constructions will contribute to improving the health and quality of life of residents, and that once completed, the complex will serve as a model and new standard for regional development in the new era. 이은진, Arirang News.
Korea is poised to command the world's largest international maritime exercise, the Rim of the Pacific, later this month, as its largest ever naval destroyer sets sail for the 5-week drill in the waters of Hawaii. Cha In-kyung covers this event.
The South Korean Navy has announced that its Aegis destroyer, the Jeongjo the Great, is set to depart from a naval base on Monday on Jeju Island to join the U.S.-led Rim of the Pacific exercise. The vessel will be making its debut appearance in RIMPAC, a multinational maritime exercise taking place in Hawaii from June 24th to July 31st. The 3,000-ton submarine Dosan Anchangho and a P-8A maritime patrol aircraft will also join the drill for the first time. The other South Korean vessels will join the exercise after completing separate operations. The Dosan Anchangho and the frigate Daejeon will head to Hawaii following joint exercises with Canada. The landing ship Cheonjabong will depart on June 7th after a joint search and rescue drill with Japan in waters of Jeju Island. In total, around 700 Navy and Marine Corps personnel, AW-159 maritime operation helicopters, and 6 Korean amphibious assault vehicles will be deployed at RIMPAC. RIMPAC is a biennial multinational exercise held under the supervision of the U.S. Third Fleet to enhance cooperation among participating countries in securing sea lines of communication and countering potential security challenges at sea. According to the Third Fleet website, this year, a multinational force of 31 nations with more than 25,000 personnel, around 40 surface ships, 5 submarines, and 140 aircraft will participate. For the first time, South Korea will lead the Combined Forces Maritime Component Command. The South Korean Navy said that the RIMPAC exercise will be a great chance for South Korea to strengthen capabilities for combined naval operation plans, since Seoul seeks to retake wartime operational control from the United States. 차윤경, Arirang News.
South Korea's cultural heritage sites are attracting record numbers of visitors. According to the Korea Heritage Service on Monday, nearly 18 million people visited the nation's royal palaces and Joseon Dynasty royal tombs last year, up nearly 13% from a year earlier and the highest figure on record. Foreign visitors accounted for more than 4.2 million, an increase of over 1 million from the previous year. The upward trend has continued this year with more than 5.4 million visits recorded through April. Officials said the BTS Gwanghwamun concerts helped to boost visits at nearby heritage sites. It's time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. For that, we have our sports editor, Paul Neat, in the studio with us. Hello, Paul.
Hello there.
Hi, so let's begin with football. So South Korea's preparations for the World Cup looks like it's off to a good start.
Yes, that's right. They had a friendly game over the weekend and they won 5-0. South Korea's first of 2 friendly games in the build-up to the World Cup against Trinidad and Tobago in Salt Lake City on Saturday, local time, ended in a 5-0 win. It appeared as though the game would be going in at the break goalless, but then captain Son Heung-min bagged a quick-fire brace with goals on 39 and 42 minutes. Cho Gu-sung came off the bench to bag a brace of his own with goals on 64 and 76 minutes, either side of a penalty from Hwang Hee-chan on 74. Head coach Hom Young-bo had the team in a 3-4-3 formation with much anticipation regarding what sort of shape he'll use at the World Cup. Midfielder Hwang In-bom made his injury return, having not played since March. But it wasn't all good news, as defender Cho Yoo-min was forced off through injury, leading to his withdrawal from the squad entirely. Choi Jae of Jeonbuk will be his replacement. Korea face El Salvador in their next friendly match on Wednesday or Thursday at 10 a.m. Korea time.
Right, and moving on to baseball, there's been a personal milestone for MLB's Lee Jung-hoo.
Yes, that's right. He got his first ever 5-hit game in MLB. In a 19-6 win for the San Francisco Giants over the Colorado Rockies on Sunday local time, Lee Jung-hoo batted 5 for 6 with 2 RBIs. And with this, his batting average reaches 300 for the first time in over a month. It was only the 3rd game back from being placed on the injured list, but it's been an incredible return, going 11 for 15. He got the scoring underway in the top of the 1st inning with an RBI. A double came in the 5th, leading to a 7-run explosion from the Giants. He then singled in his 2nd at-bat in the 5th inning, and then again in the 7th for an RBI, and again in the 8th.
Right, and moving on to golf, we actually had live Korea over the weekend.
We did, yes. The 2nd time live has been on these shores. This year's in Busan at the Asiad Country Club was won by Joaquin Niemann following a playoff, beating Taylor Gooch with a birdie on the first playoff hole. The two had finished at 12 under par. Niemann takes home $4 million in prize money, and the highest ranked Korean was Song Young-han, who finished 12th at 6 under. He shot a 3 under 67 in the final round of the par 70 course.
Right, and finally on to badminton, yet another win for An Se-young.
Another one, yes, the Singapore Open further cementing her as one of the world's very best in this sport. But the world number one defeated Japan's Akane Yamaguchi in 3 games on Saturday, winning 21-11, 17-21, 21-19 in a thrilling final that lasted just over an hour. The victory marks An's 3rd Singapore Open crown, having also won back in 2023 and then in 2024. Despite appearing to struggle physically following headaches and dizziness in the semis, An showed remarkable composure under pressure after falling behind late in the deciding game. She rallied with 4 straight points before forcing an error from Yamaguchi on the match point to seal the title. She'll now head to Indonesia for the Open there, which begins on Tuesday.
Great stuff, so thanks for that, Paul.
Thank you.
Another hot day is in store for tomorrow. If temperatures climb to the forecast high of 33 degrees Celsius, Seoul could see its hottest day of the year so far. Meanwhile, mountainous areas of Jeju Island could pick up more than 150 millimeters of rain, while parts of the southern coast may see over 80 millimeters. Most of the rain will taper off by tomorrow afternoon, but rain may be accompanied by gusty winds and lightning, so be sure to stay weather aware. In areas that remain dry, UV levels will be very high. If you're heading outdoors, be sure to use sunscreen and wear a hat to protect yourself from the sun. Tomorrow, Seoul will start the day at 19 degrees, Chuncheon at 16 degrees, Daegu at 20 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 33 degrees, while the southern regions, including Busan and Jeju, will both top out at 24 degrees. Looking ahead to Wednesday's local elections, brief showers may develop over inland areas of Jeollanam-do and Gyeongsang-nam-do provinces. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
That's all we have for tonight. I'm Moon Hae-ryun, filling in for Kim Da-mi. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.